Sarah sits at a crowded dinner table, feeling successful, confident, and completely in control. She just picked up the tab for her friends using a heavy metal rewards card. Her clothes are new, her phone is the latest model, and to everyone watching, she looks like she is winning. David sits across from her, feeling a quiet sense of doubt. He split his portion of the bill with a debit card. He is wearing the same jacket he bought 3 years ago. Looking at Sarah, he wonders if he is falling behind. At first glance, it looks obvious. Sarah has the money. David is struggling, but the real math tells a different story. The truth is, one of them is quietly buying their future freedom. The other is silently selling it to a bank, and the trap is not what most people think. Let's keep this comparison completely fair. Sarah and David both earn $70,000 a year. They live in the same city, pay the same amount for rent, and have the exact same basic living expenses. After taxes, groceries, and bills, they both have exactly $500 of disposable income left over at the end of every single month. The only difference is how they choose to use that $500. Sarah believes she works hard and deserves to enjoy her money right now. She uses credit cards to bridge the gap between the lifestyle she can afford and the lifestyle she actually wants. She buys the designer clothes, books the weekend flights, and upgrades her apartment furniture. She does not worry too much about the total balance because she uses her $500 to easily cover the minimum monthly payments. David takes a different path. He ignores the upgrades. He keeps his older car, his basic furniture, and his modest wardrobe. Instead of spending his $500, he automatically transfers it into an S&P 500 index fund on the first day of every month. They both have the exact same income, but they are playing two completely different games. For the first few years, Sarah is clearly winning. Her life looks like a highlight reel. When her friends want to go out to an expensive restaurant, she never says no. When her phone gets a scratch, she immediately upgrades to the newest model. She does not feel stressed because that $500 a month easily covers the minimum payments on her $15,000 credit card balance. The debt feels invisible. It is just a number on an app that she rarely checks. David, on the other hand, feels the friction. When his friends go on a spontaneous weekend trip, he has to pass. His car occasionally needs repairs, and he pays for them in cash, which stings. Every month, watching that $500 leave his checking account to go into an investment portfolio feels like a sacrifice. He is giving up comfort today for a future he cannot even see yet. Everyone around them makes the same judgment. Sarah is thriving. David is struggling. Sarah has figured out how to live a great life on a normal salary. But this is the illusion of debt. It makes you feel wealthy right up until the trap snaps shut. But year 5 is where the story changes. The excitement of Sarah's purchases has completely faded. The designer clothes are out of style. The memories of the weekend trips are buried in her camera roll. The expensive furniture now just feels like normal furniture. But the payments did not fade. The payments are still there. Sarah is still swiping her card for $500 every single month. But now it does not feel like she is buying anything. It feels like she is being punished. She wants to quit her stressful job, but she cannot because she needs the income to service her debt. She wants to move to a nicer apartment, but her credit score has taken a hit from her high utilization rate. The debt has stopped being a tool for lifestyle and has become a cage. David experiences a completely different shift. The pain of investing that $500 a month has vanished. It has become automatic background noise. But when he opens his investment app, he sees something that changes his psychology entirely. His money is now making its own money. The first few years told one story. Now the math tells another. Let's look at the actual numbers at the end of year 5. Over 60 months, Sarah has sent her credit card company exactly $30,000. That is $500 a month, every month, for 5 years. But because her credit card charges a 22% interest rate, a massive portion of that $500 went straight to the bank, just for the privilege of holding the debt. After 5 years of payments, she has paid roughly $13,000 in interest alone. She spent $30,000 to buy $17,000 worth of lifestyle. And what does she have to show for it today? Nothing. The trips are over, the clothes are worn out, and her net worth is deeply negative. Now let's look at David. David also spent exactly $30,000 over those 60 months. He invested $500 a month into an S&P 500 index fund. Assuming a historical average return of around 10% annually, his money has been compounding. At the end of year 5, David does not just have his original $30,000. He has earned roughly $8,000 in investment returns. His account balance is sitting at around $38,000. Let that sink in. Both of them spent the exact same amount of money out of pocket, $30,000. But the gap between them is staggering. Sarah is sitting at zero assets and likely still carries a balance. David has $38,000 in liquid wealth. In just 5 years, the identical $500 monthly payment created a massive divide. But the math is about to get much worse for Sarah. The most dangerous part of Sarah's debt is not the 22% interest rate. The real trap is something called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the wealth you miss out on because your money is tied up doing something else. When Sarah sent that $13,000 in interest to the bank over 5 years, she did not just lose $13,000. She lost what that $13,000 could have become if it had been invested. Financial experts often talk about the rule of 6%. The general guideline is that if you hold debt with an interest rate higher than 6%, it is almost always mathematically smarter to pay off that debt before you invest. Why? Because the stock market averages about a 10% return over the long run. If you are paying 22% interest to a credit card company, but only earning 10% in the market, you are moving backward. Sarah is fighting a war on 2 fronts, and she is losing both. She is paying a massive penalty to the bank, and she is entirely missing out on the magic of compound growth. The money she is using to pay for her past lifestyle is stealing the funding for her future freedom. This is why debt feels so heavy. It is not just the stress of the monthly payment, it is the subconscious realization that you're working hard today to pay for yesterday, leaving absolutely nothing for tomorrow. And when we stretch this timeline out to 10 years, the numbers become terrifying. Let's check the final scoreboard at the end of year 10. Over a decade, Sarah has spent $60,000 servicing her credit card debt. That is $500 a month, every month, for 10 years. Because of how minimum payments and high interest rates work, she has likely paid over $30,000 in interest alone. And despite handing over $60,000 of her hard-earned income, she probably still owes the bank money. She has spent a decade on a financial treadmill, exhausted, stressed, and with zero wealth to show for it. Now look at David. David also deployed $60,000 out of pocket over that same decade, but his money was working for him. At a 10% average annual return, his $500 monthly investment has grown to over $100,000. He did not win the lottery. He did not get a massive promotion. He did not inherit a trust fund. He simply took the exact same $500 that Sarah gave to the bank, and he gave it to his future self instead. The gap between them is no longer just a math problem, it is a life problem. David now has $100,000 in liquid wealth. If he loses his job, he is fine. If he wants to take a year off to travel, he can. He has bought options. He has bought freedom. Sarah is still trapped. She cannot quit. She cannot rest. The $500 payment is still due on the 15th of every month. The flip happened quietly, but the result is permanent. Now, I would be lying if I said that all debt is a trap. There are situations where holding debt is actually the smarter financial move. The problem is not the concept of borrowing money. The problem is how most people use it. If you have a mortgage locked in at a 3% or 4% interest rate, rushing to pay that off might actually be a mistake. Remember the rule of 6%? If your debt costs you 4%, but your investments earn you 10%, keeping the mortgage and investing your extra cash builds wealth faster. That is called leverage, and it is how wealthy people use debt to get wealthier. Debt also makes sense when it directly increases your earning power. A reasonable student loan for a high-paying career path can be a massive net positive, and of course, life happens. If your car breaks down and you need it to get to work and a credit card is your only option, you use the card. The danger is not using debt to survive an emergency or buy an appreciating asset. The danger is using high-interest consumer debt to fund a lifestyle you cannot afford. Sarah and David both sat at that dinner table years ago, making the exact same salary. Sarah thought she was buying happiness. She thought she was buying status. But what she was actually buying was a cage. She traded her future flexibility for a few years of comfort, and the math punished her for it. David chose the quiet path. He looked like he was falling behind. He felt the friction of missing out. But he understood that every dollar he invested was a worker he hired to buy back his time. The real trap of debt is not the interest rate. It is the fact that it normalizes spending your future before you even get there. The next time you are tempted to swipe a card to bridge the gap between what you have and what you want, ask yourself one question: what future freedom am I selling to pay for this today?